You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. As we are just past the noon hour here on Braves Country Radio. And we'll make these pretty short and sweet as we head into the Colorado Rockies series. The Braves won their first road series. It always feels better if you win the last game of the series, but when it's all said and done, we won the series. And Schwelenbach didn't look good. They kind of addressed it after the game. There's not a whole lot to listen to, but essentially what they said was he had a bad outing. And, okay, I get that. But at the same token, he's had a few bad outings or sub-Schwelenbach outings. So I am a little concerned, but I'm not ready to push the panic button yet. But if you just look at what he has done here in 2025, it started off with a bang, and then since then he's kind of trickled off. And I honestly think that it's just location. I also say something too to all the pitching that went on this weekend. We talked about this on the show on Friday. It was a very pitcher-friendly park. It always has been. It's got to do with the fact that even when the roof is open, it's always been a pitcher-friendly park. One of the things that a lot of the batters say is that the batter's eye is just very good. So you see the ball very well. It's also got weird caverns like down there in right field, and it's a spacious outfield, so there's a lot of room to cover. So the outfielders are kind of like this series we're about to head into with Colorado. When you've got extra real estate, it's not like Truist Park. Truist Park is a very average sized park as far as the width of the outfield. You would think that Major League Baseball would make at least the width of the outfield even across the board, no matter where you're at, but that's just not the way it was done from the very beginning. And as they have opened more and more new stadiums, honestly, I don't think you'll ever get that. That's part of the charm of baseball, is the fact that you have guys going into different parks having to deal with the different dimensions, and it's not a cookie cutter. It's not like the NBA. It's not like the NFL, college football, all the dimensions are the same. That's what makes baseball the best sport there is. But when we look at what Schwelenbach has done this year, and we're going game by game on this. The first game was against San Diego, 6 innings, no earned runs, just 1 hit. He only struck out 4, but that's a really good lineup. Then he goes up against Miami, and he flat out dominates. 8 innings, 10 strikeouts, no earned runs, 2 hits. Since that outing against Miami, and I don't think it's because he went 8 innings, because he's had plenty of time to get plenty of rest since then. But since that game, and remember, Miami's offense is not good. It's terrible. So he dominated Miami's offense. He did a great job against San Diego, but it also was, the second game of the season? And when you look at that big picture, let's be honest, or was that might have been the third game of the season. Regardless, pitching's always in front of the offense. The offense starts catching up with pitching into mid to late April because guys start getting their groove, their swing. So very beginning of the season, pitching always dominates Major League Baseball. That's across the board. Then he goes up against Philadelphia, and he pitched a damn good game. That's why I didn't think there was going to be any issues with Schwelenbach. I was thinking borderline Cy Young type of run. And then he fell apart in Toronto. He went 4 2/3, 6 earned runs. And I felt like that they left him in too long. They were trying to squeeze out that extra inning out of him out there in Toronto, and he just didn't have his best stuff. He bounced back against St. Louis, 7 and 2 earned runs, but St. Louis is not a very good offense, and he only struck out 5. That's the biggest thing that concerns me with him, is that what he has been so dominant since he's come up with the major leagues, he's had a very high strikeout rate. It has not been the case his last 1, 2, 3, 4 starts. And then yesterday, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, outside the Toronto game, his worst outing. And I will give him some props, though. He didn't have his best stuff, and he found a way to get through 6 innings. And we almost came back and won that game. And it just shows you how good the offense really is, that the Braves continue to work themselves in and find a way to get themselves into position to win these games late because the offense keeps plucking away. But as far as Schwelenbach, I just think where we're at right now, and it could just be the sophomore slump, but teams are seeing him more and more, so they're getting a better game plan against him, and he's going to have to refine. He's going to have to adjust. I think he will. I think he's got great stuff, and he definitely has the bulldog mentality that you love in a starting pitcher. But he just hasn't had a great outing here since basically, we'll say, the Philly start, because really, once again, St. Louis is such an outlier. He gave up 2 runs, and that's not terrible. And he remember, he didn't have good stuff then. He only struck out 5 through 7, which with Schwelenbach, he should be. Give me 1 second, y'all. I've got something going on. I don't know what in the hell it is. Give me 1 second. Okay. Had something going on in the background, ended up being a false alarm, but it didn't sound right. Anyways, back to the rest of the story. And yeah, look, the umpires were pinching Schwelenbach and the rest of the starting pitchers all weekend long, but Arizona was dealing with the same thing. I felt like that we were getting a little worse to wear, but at the same token, if I was a Diamondbacks fan, I may not feel that way. It was just the eye of the beholder. It felt like every big situation, we were starting off in the hole because of a bad call, whether we were pitching or we were hitting. So anyway you look at it, both teams were dealing with, man, I'll tell you what, yesterday, Clint Vondrick, he was especially bad. And when you look at that blown call that he had at the beginning of the game, the very beginning of the game, where he came in and he called Verdugo out at home plate. First of all, he was safe for those of y'all who didn't catch it. We challenged it, and we still didn't get overturned because the way they worded it was basically saying they didn't feel like they had enough video evidence to overturn it. And I get that. But it was a bad call, and maybe a little bit of bad luck, because it was such a close play, and Vondrick, the way he had positioned himself, he was a little blocked out of position. I've never understood why they've told umpires to stand where they stand on a play at the plate coming from that angle. I've always felt like that they should be off to the left shoulder, but that's how they're trained. He didn't do it incorrectly, but he did miss the call. But anyways you look at it, the Atlanta Braves got, I'm not going to say subpar, but considering who their starters were, they got average at best starting pitching this weekend. Sale only went 5, fought his way to get through 5. The Braves came roaring back, and the offense really put a stamp on that game and pushed the game out late, so it looks like a very impressive 8-2 victory, but that's not what it was when Sale left. And the other thing is Game 2, the Saturday night game, another seesaw affair. Offense kept punching back, finding a way. They almost did it again last night, but then the bullpen late, Bummer had a bad outing, but all in all, Bummer's been good. These guys are not going to be perfect when they come out, but it gets magnified because when they come out of the bullpen, they come out for that one inning, and they come out for that one inning late. And so if they had a bad inning in the second or third like a starter would have, you kind of gloss over and go, yeah, but he's through 6 really good innings. If a reliever does the same thing, goes out and has, we'll say, 5 outings, and one of them's bad late, and you feel like it cost you the game, everybody's ready to call him a bum, he's terrible, and whatnot. All in all, Aaron Bummer's done a very good job. For anyone that tells you differently, they just don't know the game. That's all I can tell you on that. And the bullpen in general is starting to get stronger. But let's go ahead and see what do we have here. That was the snit happens. I didn't hit the sound bite, but that's what it was. We got the loss. It is what it is. And now let's go with a little smoke 'em if you got 'em.
What's all the shouting?
All right, so the matchups for today, and that's really all. Now, I do think we're going to see some moves during this Colorado series. We may get one today. Once again, if you're hearing this on replay, we do this at noon live here on Braves Country Radio, and we do it the beginning of every single series going into the first series. So the first game of every series. So the next one we'll do, I guess, will be Friday at noon, but it's always noon Eastern. You always catch it on our YouTube channel, Braves Country Radio. We can't always share it to the Facebook because sometimes we have a problem of the Facebook feed. But make sure to jump on the YouTube. We haven't had many problems with them over the years. So. And it's just got to do with the technology that Facebook uses. They will make it difficult sometimes. And then as you're going live, it'll tell you to basically do all these hoops. And we're like, I don't have time. Sucks to suck. We're on YouTube. Find us there. And that's really where we want most of y'all to catch us because that's where the crowd is. That's where most of the people who comment are. You're going to have much more fun. We do tend to share the game, but only a portion of the game now on Facebook. Excuse me. And if you're wondering why we're doing that, because we want more of you in the YouTube chat, because there's very few that get into the Facebook chat, because Facebook, their technology is not set up to watch a live video for very long. You get to the point where you try to push it away and your video goes away and all that. So that's the reason behind if you're ever on Facebook. And a lot of times these apps will put these big things in our chat telling us, well, Facebook is doing this, then I can't read any of the YouTube comments. So I'm like, it's not worth it. But that's the reason why you want to find us on YouTube. As far as the matchups for this series, we'll scroll this up just a little bit so you can see it just a little better. I'm not going to go too far because I don't want you to start looking ahead at the Dodger series, because we'll do that on Friday. We've got Elder versus Feltner tonight. I would say that's about a push. Braves will be favored in every one of these games because their roster top to bottom is better. But if you're looking at the starting pitching, Elder versus Feltner, Feltner's a pretty good pitcher. He truly is. And he's a guy that the Braves have seen in the past and have had some struggles with. But all in all, Ryan Feltner is a guy that is coming in to today, and of course he's at home too, so he's got the advantage of knowing how to pitch in that park. But he's coming in with a 3.86 ERA versus Bryce Elder's 5.57. Bryce Elder gutted it out last Wednesday and actually had a pretty good start. But because Bryce Elder does not strike out a ton of batters, and he has to be very precise to get guys out, the Colorado air is going to be a problem, because every pitcher that goes up there says the ball just doesn't spin the same way because of the lack of humidity, and because you're technically almost a mile high, and everything that goes on into the actual physics of it, the ball doesn't cut the same way. So the guys that have the best luck in Colorado are usually your power pitchers. You know, a guy like a Schwelenbach, a Strider, they would have better chances because they're looking at the strikeout. We won't have any of those two guys in this series, so it is what it is. It's Elder right now for game one. They haven't announced it, but I would guess it's A.J. Smith-Shawver for game two. We'll probably get that announcement tonight because they'll probably wait to make an extra move at the end after tonight's game so they can fiddle with the bullpen and whatnot. But tonight it's Elder. Most likely tomorrow it'll be A.J. Smith-Shawver. And then you've got Chris Sale on Wednesday. And the only thing that concerns me about the Chris Sale thing on Wednesday is he's been struggling with command. And once again, and he's going to be pitching in a day game. The first two pitchers are pitching in night games. It's going to be a little cool. And it's going to, the Colorado air shouldn't make as much of a difference tonight and tomorrow night. It's more likely to play games with you on Wednesday, which is a day game. 3:10 first pitch, and I always get the mountain time zone confused, but that's either 1:10 or 12:10 this time of year because they don't adhere to daylight savings. But regardless, it's a day game, and it's supposed to be in the 70s, which means much more likely that Wednesday is going to be an issue. That Monday and Tuesday, you've got a better chance of the bullpen and the starting pitchers to, I'm not going to say they're going to be firing all cylinders, but they shouldn't have as much issue. But there will be an issue. There will still be an issue. But I'm just glad that for once we're not playing Colorado in the middle of July. Remember last year when we had the collapse in the last couple of innings in Colorado on that Sunday game? And it really sent the Braves into a spiral. It wrecked the bullpen the whole 9 yards. I think y'all remember Luke Jackson was basically the villain in the whole thing. But anyway, you look at it, it's gonna be a fight to get through these next three games. But thankfully, we actually have a day off on Thursday. So whatever you do with your bullpen and your starting pitchers, you have an extra day built-in of rest to reset it, because when we come home on Friday, and I don't like to look ahead, but you are inviting the most talented team in baseball, which is the Los Angeles Dodgers, for a 3-game set. But we've got to get through this game, and I hope they're not looking ahead and go, man, I can't wait to play the Dodgers. Can't wait to get back home, because the next thing you know, we will lose this series. Braves should win this series. And the way they've been playing, I would be shocked if they don't. I would love a sweep, but I always say you can't assume sweeps because it takes one starting pitcher to either pitch phenomenally above expectations or our starting pitcher to hit the skids. But if you want to win a series, to me, game one's always imperative because it gives you so much more leeway, which you can do with your bullpen in games 2 and 3. The Braves are now 12-15, and that doesn't sound very great, but remember we started off 0-7, and that's not nothing. So if you do the math on that and you take away the 0-7, then the Braves are 12-8, and that's pretty darn good. And they're in a run right now where you talk about winning 5 of 6 at home before we took off, and then win 2 of 3 on the road. So you've won 7 of 9, and that's really what you're looking at is how are you playing right now. They're playing very well. Very well. And I do believe today it's going to be a bit of a grind because the starting pitcher is Feltner. Feltner, he's a right-hander, 6'4". Actually out of Orlando, Florida, played for Ohio State. But you look at what he's done this year, and he had a really bad game at the Dodgers. Who the hell doesn't have a bad game at the Dodgers? Other than that, he's pitched pretty darn well. First game of the season at Tampa, we know what kind of popcorn stand that place is. He went 5, gave up 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. The next game at home against the Athletics, who are much more improved roster this year than what we've seen the last few years, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. Then he had a date against the Brewers on April 10th, and he went 6, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. So you see the theme. But he had the one outlier in Los Angeles on April 15th where he went 2 2/3, 5 earned runs, and got pelted. He bounced back the next game against Kansas City, and that's a good offense, Kansas City. And that's a hitter's park at Kauffman Stadium. And he went 7 innings, 1 earned run. So, 4 strikeouts. So, this is going to be a tough one. And this might be the game that decides whether or not you can go for that sweep, or heck, for that matter, win the series. Though they've only won 4-14, it's because their offense hasn't been very good. They're what, 4-23, 4-23. So this is a bad baseball team that we're facing, but tonight we're probably facing their ace, honestly. A lot of people will make other arguments for other guys, but like tomorrow night, Marquez, and German Marquez he was a big prospect, but he's got a 9.3 ERA. And that's the game that Smith-Shawver should be pitching against. And then on Wednesday, the sales looked bumpy. He's going up against a guy by the name of Dollander, who's 1-3 with the 7.91 ERA. So, my point is, if we can win this game tonight, anyway, by hook or by crook, doesn't matter how you get it, whether it's a pitcher's duel or it's a slugfest, you get the win tonight, you have a realistic shot, a very realistic shot of taking the next 2 games, which means the sweep. You lose the game tonight, the best thing you can do is win the series. And though that's not a terrible thing, I would still take a series win. But you get a little greedy when you start off 0-7 and you go up against a team who's 4-23, and you would prefer to go in there and sweep them. Colorado has a little bit of an advantage. Not only are they at home, but they were at home this weekend, so there's no travel for them. And so, but 4-23 is still 4-23. We need to make them 4-26 when we leave on Wednesday afternoon. Another quick reminder, Wednesday afternoon, after the game, I guess it'll be early Wednesday evening, we are going to do our first post-game show of the season and see how that goes. It's going to be free to watch on TikTok. If you want to watch it on YouTube, you're going to have to be a country club member, and we're not putting it up on Facebook because it's too big of a hassle to put stuff up on Facebook for that short of a show. It'll be a quick recap show, reaction show. We'll basically we'll do on these is we'll come up a few minutes after the game ends and just enough time to start a new feed. And then at that point, we will answer any questions, comments, all that kind of stuff. That's basically what we'll do. Because we have called the game pitch by pitch, you know that we paid attention to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through that game, whether it's a win, lose, or draw, what the turning point of the game was. But they won't be terribly long. My goal is to do these for about 15 minutes. All right. By the way, Braves Country X on TikTok, the same thing as our X handle on X/Twitter. All right, the last one we're gonna do. That's the rumor. This is about the prospects.
That's the rumor.
You retired too?
Not me. I'm in my prime.
All right, so the Atlanta Braves, man, they still have it green. I don't know why they're doing that. I thought that was just for Earth Day, but I guess they've got it up there for the entire month. I'm not really understanding what MLB is doing. But anyways, the Atlanta Braves, taking a look at the prospects, there was a lengthy article that we kind of went through to just kind of pick out the major talking points. If you want to read the whole article, you would go to MLB.com. It's Mark Bowman that wrote it, so I do want to give credit where credit is due. But this is just trying to kind of check in with our pitching prospects and where we are at here on right at the end of April, right? So he no longer considers A.J. Smith-Shawver a prospect, and why should he? He's been up and down from the farm system to the major leagues enough, and is assumed to be Tuesday's starter. There's no real reason to call him a prospect anymore. So let's start with the next guys. You got Cam Caminiti, who's the number 2 prospect in the system, but at the same token, and by the way, if you're wondering, A.J. Smith-Shawver, for all intents and purposes, would be the number 1 pitching prospect. But once again, he's going to be in the major leagues, so we're done calling him a prospect. Cam Caminiti is the number 2 prospect, and he was drafted by the Braves last year, 24th pick overall in the first round. He's an 18-year-old. He is far and away before he becomes a major leaguer. But they did say that he dealt with some arm discomfort in spring training, so they've been building up his arm strength slowly because they're not in a hurry, because he's not going to be, you're not going to take an 18-year-old pitcher and put him in the major leagues unless you are just flat out on the white horse. I mean, if a general manager does that, he needs to be drug tested immediately. Hurston Waldrop, man, he's not looked good. He has not looked good. I've watched a couple of his starts. He's got a 6.04 ERA. Remember, this was a guy that we thought was going to be the second coming last summer, and he got pelted around in the majors, and now they're talking about that he may be a guy that they transition to the bullpen, which I'm here for, because if you could make him a legitimate back-of-the-end guy, that can save you some money. Because remember, Iglesias, along with the Big Zoo, they are guys that you can see the end of the rainbow with, and you got to start planning for the future. The next guy that they talked about was Drew Hackenberg. He's the number 5 prospect for the Braves, and he once again, just like Hurston Waldrop, he has an ERA north of 6. It's 6.75 and 5 starts, Double-A Columbus. So, look, 23-year-old right-hander, this is the time where you would expect him to start making big leaps towards the majors, but he's taking a step back. He gave up 7 earned runs in 4 innings against Chattanooga on Saturday. So it's not like he's getting better. All right, guy that most people are really excited about until he had the Tommy John surgery. Owen Murphy, he's still ranked as the 6th prospect, but he's about 11 months from his Tommy John surgery. So I would be shocked if he pitches in 2025, but they may pitch him at the very tail end to get him some exposure, but he's not going to be with the major leagues anytime soon. The number 7 prospect, this is the guy you can keep an eye on. J.R. Ritchie, who's the number 7 overall prospect. And he was drafted in the first round in 2022. He has a 2.57 ERA in high A Rome. Now, we know high A Rome is not the end all that beats all. You'd really be more impressed if that was double A. But his 20% strikeout rate, though isn't it doesn't jump off the page. I think they called it eye-popping. He has limited his opponents to a 181 batting average. And I've seen him pitch a few times. He's got pretty good stuff. He could be a guy that if he's not up this year, you could see him next year. The number 8 prospect is Bauman, and he was a guy that was in the spring breakout game. He's 6'8", and what are they saying here? He issued 4 walks in his season debut, but since then he threw 6 scoreless against Winston-Salem on Wednesday, and that's not nothing. Lucas Braun, the number 10 prospect, he's got a 3.00 ERA in 4 starts at Columbus, 26 strikeouts, and just 2 walks over 24 innings. So that's a guy that you keep an eye on. To me, Lucas Braun and J.R. Ritchie, when we're talking about foreseeable future, those are guys that you kind of circle. And then once again, you got Didier Fuentes. We've talked about him before, but there are people in the organization that think that he actually may be the top pitching prospect when everything is said and done. But he's 19 years old. He was promoted to Double A, by the way. This is after recording 9 strikeouts over 5 innings for Rome back on April 18th? April 18th. And when he came up, he got 7 strikeouts in 3 innings. So this guy, Didier Fuentes, I'm assuming I am pronouncing that right. That's exciting. And maybe I would think because he's 19, he's going to be on the trajectory of, we'll say, 2027-ish. But you never know when you have a guy like that. If he continues to pitch well and blow people away, the Braves have been known to bring guys up. They could also be a guy that they move in a deal this summer. I do think the untouchables in this would be Owen Murphy and Hurston Waldrop at this point. But if someone backed the Brinks truck up with talent and the way he's pitched so far, but someone thinks they can get more out of Hurston Waldrop, he could be on the move. Because he hasn't. I love the idea of putting him as a reliever, because the guy has just been, he's basically got a fastball and it's like a splitter. I think he's one of the guys that throws the splinker, but it's a splitter sinker, and they're calling it a splitter. But I'm almost positive that when we did him last year, when they brought him up when we did the game, I'm almost positive that he was one of the guys that was throwing that splinker. But he's got 2 really good pitches. The problem is when you're a starting pitcher, you got to go through the lineup 2-3 times, and you run out of tricks, basically. Maybe he's a guy that they can push into the bullpen towards the end of the year. The bullpen's been pitching pretty well for the Braves, all in all, top to bottom. So I don't think they're going to in that panic mode yet, but it could be something that they do later in the season. Cam Minetti, he's not a can't miss prospect, but I do believe is untouchable right now. I don't think the Braves want to trade Drew Hackenberg anytime soon. And then Owen Murphy, he is a good, solid calendar year before we'll see him in any kind of action down on the farm. But he's a guy, he's 21 years old, so still a very young kid. And he'll be coming off of Tommy John. And I would think the sky is the limit for this kid, because when he first came out in 2022, first round selection, everybody was in love with this kid. Everybody. So there you have that. I'll go ahead and get out of y'all's hair. This one went a little further, a little longer than I expected to. We'll probably chop it down a little bit. But y'all have a good one. Let's see if anyone's got any questions real quick. I'm going to scroll the last several questions. So if you've got anything, throw it in the chat now, because I don't have time to go through the entire beginning of it. Let's see. Hellion thinks that Bryce is going to have a legendary outing. Well, it could be legendary, but that's not always good. There's a lot of legends that are really bad. The key to me with Bryce Elder tonight is going to be that sinker. Does it sink in the Colorado air, or does it stay flat and get tattooed? That's the biggest problem. Yeah, well, James, not only is he getting up in years, he's running out of contract. So, yeah, I agree. And I would much rather bring up a kid like a Hurston Waldrop if he's got the stones. That's the biggest thing. You don't know if a guy's got the stones to be a closer. He could have the stuff, but does he have the stones? But you could have a kid that if you bring him up and you have control over him for the next several years, like a Mason Miller out in Oakland, that's a very valuable asset, because you don't have to go out there and throw $15 million plus at a guy who's going to pitch maybe 60 innings all year long. But they're very valuable innings. That's why you pay it. But if you can keep him at league minimum, holy cow. Let's see if anyone else has a couple of new comments here. All right, just talk about Maddox. Hellion's going to be one of them get off my lawn people about Maddox, man. 20, 30 years from now. Let me tell you something. Sit down, whippersnapper. Let me tell you about the great Greg Maddox. Anyways, we'll see you. First pitch is not till 8:40. We're going to come on the air about 8 o'clock, and we'll have the replay of this audio. Y'all have a great one. Great seeing everybody, as always. I know it went a little long, and people are dipping out on me. Fair enough.